Welcome to Lesson 9. Today we're going to discuss and work with extra markup. So where do we begin, and what is extra markup? To understand this in context, we need to go way back to the beginning. Before HTML was a standard language to be used on the web, it was a language developed by Tim Berners-Lee at CERN. HTML version 1 had tags that could be all uppercase or lowercase. It wasn't a standard. It was a proposal of a way to represent information. You can read the initial proposal at this link. HTML 2.0 was the first version that was developed to be a standard. The proposal for 2.0 came at the end of 1995. From there, we would see HTML3, then HTML4 released in 1997. In the year 2000, XHTML 1.0 was released. The idea behind XHTML was to make HTML4 more like XML. So what is XML? XML is a language that allows people to share data in a more universal format. You could potentially write new markup languages with XML. Thus, XHTML was very strict in the way attributes are defined. The key benefit was maintaining this structure so that XHTML code could work with other programs that are written to process XML documents. Fast forward in time, add some drama, conflict, and maybe a few ninjas. We have websites that are written in XHTML1 or HTML4, both of which are over 10 years old. A lot has changed in the web in that time. There's no XHTML 2.0, it was abandoned, and thus the work to update HTML was underway by two different groups. With an initial release in October 2014, officially HTML5 was born. So with that little bit of history out of the way, let's take a look at some of the extra markup we can use. So I'm going to show the extra markups we can use. So here we have the doc type declaration. This one is the current HTML 5.0 declaration. The angle bracket, exclamation, doc type in all capitals, then just HTML and closing bracket. Here we see HTML 4.0 declaration. This was transitional and loose, and here we see another one for HTML 4.0. This is XHTML. This is for XHTML, where we said we're doing XHTML transitional. So you might see either of these document types, and this just tells the browser what type of version of HTML we're using. So if we go to web, and hopefully this doesn't fail, we validate local HTML. Validate HTML, we'll see this page has 5 errors. It should have shown us the code. Try 55 errors on that website. Here we see document type does not allow element script. So here in this the W3C, the markup validation service, is checking for HTML, XHTML of the website, and it tells you what that page can and can't do. Here we go. We want to clean up tidy. It should show us the cleaned up HTML at the end. Here we go. We see here they didn't include a doc type, but they included here this HTML opening tag. So that's part of the extra markups. Now let's continue. So we want our document to be HTML 5.0. So we want this doc type. And these ones I'm just going to comment out for now. And so we just need an opening HTML tag. And I'm going to continue down here. And so we see our paragraph quote, we see an ID tag here, ID equals quote, we see ID equals value. So these are our extra markups. So this just, what does this do? This identifies this tag. So have quote here, and this one is going to end. Where's this one going to end? Make it easier to read. It's going to end right here. So see how NetBeans highlights these? Okay, so remember this one's ID quote, and here we see another tag, extra markup, ID equals value, and this is a div tag, which is also extra markup. This wasn't around before. So what does the div tag do? Div groups elements together. So this div tag has grouped all these elements within it. So we have one paragraph here where it says hi. We have a second paragraph that this is some longer text, and we have an unordered list of 3 items. So these are all grouped together. So when we access this value or this ID, something will happen. So I'm going to demonstrate that right now. So run this page. This is the page we had. You can see water and air, so very commonplace. So we have water and air, so very commonplace. And now, and then from here, this div tag starts from high. So all this is one block, given the value. So what I'm going to do now is do something to it. So see this button here I put here? I'm going to press it, and look, suddenly new text appeared, got you, and all that text just disappeared. How did I do that? So if we look here, we see we created a new button, which is also kind of like extra markup, type, on click, I told it, when you click this button, do this thing here called do it, which is a JavaScript. We're not going to get into the JavaScript right now, but it's best to understand how this works based on your HTML code. So because we gave this one ID equals value, we told the JavaScript, go into my document, find the element named value, and change its HTML, inner HTML, to this HTML I wrote here, got you. So like I could even change this one. What did we call this other ID? Quote. So I could change that quote, change this to quote. So now it's going to look for the element named quote and change it to this HTML. So look at the page again. We see all our text is back. Now this time when I press the button, this stayed here because this one was labeled value, but instead the quote from above disappeared and was replaced by this text, got you. So that's how this extra markup works. It's these are the things that have occurred since the beginning of HTML. We can now give our attributes, our elements IDs, and we have this new one called div that groups things together. So now watch this. Now let's say I move this outside of the div and change this one back to value. Remember how before all of this disappeared when I pressed the button? Okay, so now div is just this in here, and our unordered list is outside. So let's see what happens when I press this button. It got rid of all of this because these are grouped together by this ID tag and changed it. Now let's say I wanted to add a class here. So this class is another, it already showed you, extra markup. Class is from CSS. So what we're telling is, for this tag, we're going to give it a class. So this class equals pull quote. Means in our CSS file, look for this and apply that style to me. So as you can see here, as soon as I saved it, let me make this a little bigger. It suddenly changed this into this nice looking text here. Now let me remove this class, or misspell it at least. Nothing, right? Nothing happens because this class doesn't exist. Quote, transform that into this nice looking box here. So this is another bit of extra markup. So this div tag has an ID and a class. Now watch what happens when I push this button. Got you. Ah, what happened? Well, we only changed the text that's inside of it. So it still has the ID value, and it's still this class pull quote, but we replaced all of this with this got you text. And so now there's talking about inline and block elements. So your paragraph and attributes like strong, these are all inline. They modify the text, pretty much they call it inline, so it doesn't change the text around it. Whereas something like an ordered list is a block element, it keeps itself in a block. So if I insert an ordered list here, let's say right after before tomorrow, I hit save. So now you see a list is inserted. It's a block, so it didn't like create like a dot here, or a bullet point here and here and here. Within a sentence, it created a new block list and put itself in there. So that's the difference between inline and block elements. Now watch this. Now if we change this one to ID equals value, when I do, so there's now two things with the same value, which we should actually have, but let's see what our JavaScript does. It looks for the first one named that, first one with that value, and replaced it. See how it changed that list into got you? Now let's get rid of this one to demonstrate one last thing with this class. So we can apply this class to different places. What if we apply it here? Now our button looks fancy because we applied this class to this paragraph. So everything inside here gets applied this style, or this class style. And that's about it for extra markup.